Senator from Arizona.
Ask unanimous consent to speak as if in morning business and as much time as I may consume.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, today I rise to speak on the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention for American Veterans Act, a most important piece of legislation, and I'd like to thank Senator Isaacson in particular for expediting this legislation through the Veterans Affairs Committee. I admire his leadership. I admire his commitment to the veterans of America. And it's really been a pleasure to know him and to serve in the Senate and advocate for our American veterans. I'd also like to thank Senator Blumenthal, whose partnership I have been with for a long period of time. And without his leadership and support, this legislation would not be coming to the floor. Mr. President, every day, approximately 22 American veterans commit suicide, totaling over 8,000 veteran suicides each year. I repeat, 8,000 veteran suicides each year. It's evident by these staggering numbers that our military and Veterans Affairs programs are not effectively treating post-traumatic stress disorder, known as PTSD, and other mental health illnesses that can lead to suicide. There are too many disconnected and ineffective treatment programs, and as a result, our servicemen and women are suffering from the bureaucracy. Against this backdrop, I'd like to highlight the story of Clay Hunt, for whom this proposed legislation is named. Clay enlisted in the Marine Corps in May 2005, deployed to Al Anbar province near Fallujah in January 2007. During that deployment, Clay Hunt was shot in the wrist by a sniper's bullet that barely missed his head, a wound for which he received a Purple Heart. Despite having been wounded, Clay Hunt volunteered and graduated from Marine Corps Scout Sniper School in March 2008. After another deployment to Afghanistan, Clay was honorably discharged from the Marines in April 2009. After returning home, Clay suffered from the effects of PTSD for many years and struggled with inadequate care at his local VA hospital. Subsequently, Clay took his own life in March 2011 at the age of 28. Clay is only one example of veterans who are trying to make their way in our country today, but who suffer more so than they have to because of the Department of Defense and Department of Veteran Affairs mismanagement of resources for suicide prevention and mental health treatment. This bipartisan bill will lay the foundation for improved mental health care and better suicide prevention resources for our American service members. Specifically, this bill would require an independent evaluation of existing suicide prevention programs at the DoD and VA to gauge their effectiveness and make recommendations for consolidation, elimination, or improvement. Additionally, this legislation would establish a new single website that provides information for veterans regarding available mental health care services, create a pilot loan repayment program to recruit more psychiatrists to treat veterans at the VA, improve the exchange of training best practices and other resources among the VA and nonprofit mental health organizations, create a community outreach pilot program to assist with and mitigate the stressors of service members transitioning to civilian life, and provide a one-year extension for certain combat veterans to enroll in the VA. Our nation has a moral obligation to identify, resource, and make available to our veterans effective forms of treatment to help eliminate suicide resulting from severe combat-related psychological trauma. This bill is an important step to improve the care we provide to the men and women who have sacrificed for all of us and to whom we are forever indebted. We owe it to these brave men and women to act now. Obviously, I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this legislation. I'd like to briefly discuss the President's budget request for fiscal year 2016 as it relates to the Veterans Administration. In this year's budget request, the President has stated that he will submit legislation to reallocate part of the funding for the Veterans Access, Choice, and Accountability Act of 2014, legislation he signed into law just last August, to other programs within the VA. In other words, he wants to take money from the Veterans Choice and Accountability Act and put it into other programs within the VA. A bill we just signed last August, we passed last August. It clearly suggests that the President of the United States is disconnected from the needs of our veterans, and they may be more solicitous about supporting a bloated, demonstrably dysfunctional bureaucracy than ensuring that quality care is available to our veterans. Our veterans have suffered long enough with wait times and scheduling delay at the VA and deserve to have the right to choose where and when they get their health care. Taking funding away from this legislation, especially the choice card, shows a complete disregard for our veterans' well-being and the service they provide to our country. If or when this legislative proposal comes to the Hill, I would urge my colleagues to vote against it, in fact, not even consider it. So, Mr. President, I want to thank my colleagues. I'm sure we will have an overwhelming vote today, and I think it's an important step forward, and I'd like to thank all the veterans organizations and veterans advocates who have made this, the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act for American veterans, a reality. But I'd also like to urge my colleagues to understand that this problem, this serious problem of 8,000 veteran suicides each year, isn't going away anytime soon. And so don't believe that the passage of this legislation will somehow be a cure-all. That can only come through long and persistent efforts and care and concern for our veterans who have given so much to their country. So I'm very honored to be a part of this legislation. Again, I want to thank the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee and the ranking member, Senator Sanders, and I'd like to thank Senator Burr, who was ranking member in the past previously. But my friends, we have a long way to go. We have a lot of young men who haven't been able to come all the way home. And it's our job and our obligation to do everything we possibly can, not only to honor them, but to see that they have a safe and secure future, and one that the thought of suicide would never be any consideration. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of quorum.